Hello YouTube, this is Dakoda from Bowtied Media, joined again by Landon Fleury of Color Coded Management, formerly Landon Remixes, and we are here to take your hot takes, I guess of sorts. Yes, I went on and asked for your hot takes and your crazy opinions on anything particularly EDM related, and we're here to both talk about them and or one of us, or kind of go back and forth, but
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, let's hop into it. Okay, I like this one, so I'll ask you this one to start. EDM tries too hard to innovate. Most other genres fail to evolve and lose relevance as a result. EDM evolves too much, losing the DNA that made it so appealing to begin with. EDM 10 to 20 years ago wasn't broken, so don't fix it. There's a reason people miss the golden era. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so first of all, I'd say I pretty strongly disagree with with this, just as like a blanket statement. First off, when we're talking about EDM 10 to 20 years ago, we're talking about a period from 2005 to 2015. This is a very long stretch of time where a lot of innovation happened. So if we're talking about going back to that kind of time period, it feels more like a kind of cry for nostalgia than any particular kind of trend that was really big at the moment. Obviously, there's a lot of amazing music that kind of came from that time period, but I think EDM kind of has to continue to innovate because, you know, if the same kind of music right now, or the same kind of music that exists in the space right now and is dominating the space right now was exactly the same as it was in like 2012, 2013 when I was getting into dance music, I would be like running away screaming from this type of stuff. Like if festivals were just completely dominated by that same like big room and, you know, bro step never changed and it was just the same for that whole
Bro step strikes again.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I would not be into the music at all anymore. It had to continue to keep evolving to kind of keep me as a listener. And I'm sure that's the same for a lot of types of people. And I think trends that are worth kind of revisiting and redefining will kind of get there. Like we're seeing a big, I'd call it like 90s, early 2000s, Y2K kind of revival.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sounds at the moment. You know, the UK garage stuff, a little bit of like the trance and rave type stuff. I think Knock 2 is a really good example of an artist who's kind of revisiting that kind of appeal and reinventing it for a new age. So I think genres that are worth kind of coming back to will be revisited by certain types of artists. I think a lot of the same philosophies as an artist like Daft Punk are kind of being revisited by like Fred again. Very, very sample heavy, things like that. So I think, genres and philosophies that are worth revisiting will get revisited, but you have to kind of let things evolve in the meantime so people have time and space to miss that kind of thing and understand why it's special. Because if you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing along after it's been creatively exhausted, then nobody's going to be interested in it anymore, in my opinion.
I think my take on this is just more of a, like, if the blanket statement at the start is EDM tries too hard to innovate, it's like, well, to get to that 2005, 2015 era, it innovated to get to that point. So how far back are we saying to not innovate? Like, I guess early dance music you could say was the, 70s, 80s maybe? Like early, maybe even earlier than that. And so like, in theory, if we're trying too hard to innovate, then we should all go back to Kraftwerk and it should all be like super, like just very analog sounds. And so we don't yearn for that era. We yearn for a different golden era. And so I'm sure we'll go through different waves of, and everything does go through waves of that too. Like comic books have their own as like, I think, to me, that's like the golden era that term comes from, I think, comic books more so than anything. And yeah, I just think we need innovation. Even as a society, if we don't innovate, then we aren't going to have the ability to, I don't know, even have mics like this that we can talk like this. Because,
New and interesting things don't come around if we just spend all of our time trying to reinvent the wheel and do the same thing over and over again.
Absolutely.
So, I think we're both in disagreement with this.
For sure.
With this take. Cohesiveness is more important than it seems. While having good songs is important, your record not feeling cohesive will massively make it worse.
This is something that we talked about a little bit beforehand, but I I generally agree with this, and maybe to a fault, I would say. The biggest thing for me I noticed this past year was I wasn't so much attuned with or loved the Virtual Riot record, Stealing Fire, because I felt that the album lacked cohesiveness that his previous record, like Simulation, did. And so, to me, the songs were great. Like, there was a ton of individually solid songs, but because they didn't have this overarching flow or narrative that a song to song felt so sporadic to me, I didn't like it as much. But I think that's to a fault because, like, I know a ton of people really, really love that record and highly praised it. And
I'm one of them.
yeah, and I would go and I would say I probably would listen to more songs from that album than I would have maybe 5 of my top 10 lists from that past year. So I don't know. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'd say I'm more with this take than I am against it. But I also think there's a difference between variety and like lack of cohesiveness, if that makes sense. Yep. Like, I think it's very possible. The first one that comes to mind is We Are Barely Alive, the debut album from Barely Alive. Yep. And it's like that album did so many different things, but it all still like felt like Barely Alive. And I like it infinitely more than their second album, which had more of a through line and more similar types of sounds and things like that. Technically, Odyssey felt like more of a cohesive listening experience, but I still prefer their debut album because it tried to do a lot of different things and did them all really well. Another album that really comes to mind on this topic is Smile by Porter Robinson. We were chatting about this album the other day. But I feel like, you know, if I'm just looking kind of at the surface and I'm looking at it track by track, it's like there's not a lot of songs on the album that I really dislike. In fact, I'd say I really enjoy a majority of the songs, but the way it comes together feels like it's missing that cohesiveness a little bit. It kind of sounds like 2 or maybe even 3 albums or EPs kind of mushed together, trying to do different things, and that makes it kind of fall apart to me, at least in comparison with his previous 2 albums. So whereas, you know, Nurture kind of has this cohesive through line, and I'd say Worlds does too. Smile, it feels like it's trying to do too much. And even though there's like lyric themes and things like that kind of tie things together and make it feel like they all belong on the same project to an extent, I feel like that lack of cohesiveness definitely like destroys the listening experience a little bit for me.
Okay, spicy one here. Dion Timmer has never released an enjoyable song in his entire career.
This is an insane take to me.
This is absolutely insane.
I think Dion Timmer is easily one of the most interesting and talented like artists in the bass space. He's released so many great EPs and albums over the years. Enter Achroma, great album. And he's got so many iconic tunes. He's got Rescue, he's got Sandman Sleeps, he's got Shiawase. I could keep going on and on. He's just got so many tunes that really resonate and feel unique in the space. And I do get to an extent, we talked about this earlier, but he does have a certain aggressive style of dubstep that doesn't work from time to time. Yep. But I think he's just so multi-talented, and you know, you might get a synthwave song from him or a synth pop song. You might get a house song, and he's so like excellent in anything he tries to do that I just can't comprehend a take where you'd listen to every Dion Timmer song and say that
they're bad.
There's nothing good in there. I don't know.
Professional EDM listeners need to stop making fun of other people's underdeveloped music taste and start recommending music that will actually help to expand their borders.
I completely agree with this statement. And that might seem surprising since I, for a large chunk of my life, was a professional.
Yeah, I would say we were probably professional listeners
who, you know, listened to so many of the albums and EPs that were being talked about in the space and then went on YouTube to discuss my opinions of them. I never tried to be, when I was doing that, I always tried to avoid like being elitist a little bit. Because when I was first getting into dance music, one of the things that I don't want to say it like pushed me away from being a dance music fan, but it definitely at times felt like people who should be on my side and just like recommending good music were telling me like my taste wasn't developed enough, or that like my opinions were stupid or whatever. Because when I was getting into dance music, a lot of the music that I was listening to was like more commercial type stuff, you know, Avicii and Swedish House Mafia, Project 46 type stuff.
Yes.
I was really into like that commercial kind of melodic stuff. And even if it's a bit more simple, and the people who, you know, grew up listening to like Chemical Brothers and The Prodigy and Daft Punk might look at that and be like, oh, this stuff is so like boring and whatever. I think it's important to be recommending those types of people foundational stuff that they might react to a little bit better. I think like Daft Punk's a really good example of something that you can show people that's like, this is actually really, really good, and you should dive more deeply into this because it's so like commercial appealing. But yeah, I completely agree. I think we need to be really careful about when people are into, I mean, we talked about melodic techno already during the interview, but when people are really excited about something, we need to be careful about shutting them out or making their opinions not heard, because there's a reason that people enjoy something, and we can always help them get to the greater stuff that we all eventually discovered. I think most people aren't going to be like, you know, I discovered electronic music through like Orbital or maybe Aphex Twin or something like that. You're usually not going to start with the more complex IDM type stuff. It's going to be a pipeline where you're eventually get to that through other types of things. That's all I really have to say.
No, I agree with that pretty much verbatim. The way I'd like to answer this is actually to flip it on its head a little bit. So I agree with everything you're saying. And on the other side of the spectrum, I think people that listen to a lot of really commercial stuff, like let's say your David Guettas, your Marshmellos, your Steve Aoki's, that are hearing these professional music listeners say that it's constantly not that great, I think they also need to go, okay, why? Sort of. I feel like I get a lot of, I don't know about you in the past, get a lot of comments of like, you just hate this person over and over again. Like, I'm like, well, no, like, I think the music is more bland than not, and all this kind of stuff. I've reviewed some of their stuff very positively as well. And on the flip side, now even in like my This Week in EDM, I'm introducing like these emerging artist stuff, and I'm going, here are like these songs, and a lot of times even in Standout, I'll put songs that are like pretty not well known and like some pretty unique artists. So it's like, at the beginning I go, yes, I don't like this, and now here's a recommendation for a really unique other artist. And so I know a lot of those people also don't really care to dive into the nuances of things, but yes, I agree with all the things you said at the first and with the take for the most part. And also on the other side of things, I think people need to think about maybe why professional listeners would so often say that something is not as strong.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. And you know, I just want to throw out that like when I was doing music reviews, I felt like I needed to qualify myself a little bit. I think that's important too.
I would agree.
Like when you're talking about an artist like let's say like David Guetta, for example, if you're reviewing an album from them, it's important to show the listener that like this isn't an artist I'm hating just to hate. You know, they've either done something in the past that I care about, or they've done work that I feel like is important in the space. But this is why this new project doesn't have that same weight to it, or feels like there wasn't time and emotion and energy put into it. So I think it's important to kind of qualify yourself a little bit rather than just trash on the opinion or whatever and leave it at that. This artist is bad. Listen to better music.
100%.
Robot Rock is an incredibly overrated song and not even top 3 on Human After All.
Oh man, no, like just no. Personally, like, I mean, when it comes to that whole record, Human After All is so obviously distinct and different from a lot of the other Daft Punk records, and I think that also shows in the way that it was critically received, and to this day not as really not played at all anymore. Like people will even, I still hear like some defunk from Homework and all that kind of stuff, but and around the world, but we don't really ever really talk about a Robot Rock or a Human After All or Technologic or anything like that much anymore. But no, Robot Rock is like, it's catchy, it's great. Like I get the big heavy, like just like like it's just like, but that's like, that was that like era defining sound for a while, and that I think that song really did define that record. Even though I think probably Human After All is a stronger song than Robot Rock, I think that Robot Rock really is the identity of that record for me personally. So
I would agree with that. Even though like so much of that, the core of that song is just sampled. It's one of, it defines the sound of the record.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me. And I also just wanted to say, when we're talking about it's not even top 3 on the album, I think I can only name 3 songs on the album, and it's like Technologic, Human After All, and Robot Rock. I can't think of another song on the album.
Television Rules the Nation.
Yeah, okay, I can think of that one.
Yeah,
too, I guess. Maybe I'd put that one above Robot Rock, but I don't know.
That one's fair.
maybe it's not top 3 on the album, but it's close. It's definitely not the worst song on the album,
for sure.
and it's easily one of the more memorable ones. So.
Emotion. And also the longer, weirder one on that album, but yes,
Okay.
Deadmau5 was right. Too many DJs are just button pushers. The obsession with crowd-pleasing visuals and pre-programmed sets means artistry and actual live mixing have become an afterthought.
Okay, so this is an interesting take because I feel like this would have made more sense like 10 or 15 years ago.
Oh.
Like back when the biggest acts playing at Ultra were like, Hardwell and Swedish House Mafia and groups that were more focused on just making like a smooth like DJ mix. Right at the moment, I feel like they're more, for basically the entirety of my life, there hasn't been this much of like a live element to electronic music.
That's very
It feels
fair.
like, this obviously isn't the case, but it feels like everyone's got that little like Pioneer, little little drum,
drum pad.
They like to do their finger drumming and whatnot during
the launch
their
pads,
DJ sets. Yeah, and launch pads and things like that. It feels like there's more of a presence of that in the festival space than there really, I don't want to say than there ever has been, because I'm sure like live electronic music was more of a thing in the 80s, 90s and whatnot, but more than there's been in a really, really long time. And
I would agree.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Deadmau5 is the one to be criticizing on this either, because his live shows really are just a lot of like pushing buttons. It's not like he's up there with a big keyboard, playing all of his chords and everything.
That's fair.
But yeah, I would say there's no. Yes, a lot of DJs are button pushers, and that's kind of the job. Your job isn't to make an amazing live performance; it's to like curate the vibe and get the crowd to dance and all that when you're a DJ. But I think there's more of a presence of that live element that isn't just pushing buttons than there's been in a really long time.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that. And interestingly, there was an interview that David Guetta did with, I can't remember who it was exactly, but did one of those like answering questions. And he was like, the question was, do DJs do anything up there? What are they doing with the buttons? And I was actually really impressed with how candid his response was. Just like he's like, yeah, a lot of times it is like a fidget thing for them to do. Yeah. And he's like, first and foremost, when they're up there, they're entertainers. Like they're there to entertain. There's a lot of behind the scenes of these videos that you guys don't even see that we cut or edit in a certain way because it's meant to be consumed in a content formula that it is just different than, I don't know, than what it maybe actually happened live, and not a crazy amount, but so I like. Yes and no also, but like, yes, Deadmau5 also, he's not up there like plugging analog things into his board, which I know he does in the production room and in the studio. But yes, and also again, to play devil's advocate, it's so accessible now that you can just go up there and have so little actual production knowledge and just put together like a regular kind of just basic mix. I could do that. I'm like a relatively fine DJ, and I could go up there and put on a good show if all the visuals and stuff is so like grand, and you guys would be like, "This is the best show ever," and I'd be like, "I just did basic mixing." So, but yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of so-so on this one.
Yeah, I mean, DJing, when it comes to DJing versus other forms of live entertainment, is an incredibly easy skill to learn.
Yeah.
But I do think there's definitely a high ceiling for it. I mean,
For sure.
It feels like James Hype is dominating the conversation at the moment, and he's like one of those, hardcore real DJ type things. So I feel like there's a lot more of those kinds of people in the conversation now. Fred Again is another one.
Oh yeah.
Just kind of dominating the scene than there's been in a really long time. So yeah, a little bit of a weird take. I get what you're saying, but I think this take would have made more sense 10 or 15 years ago, personally.
I also think it depends on what shows you're going to. Yeah,
that's true.
Like, I'm curious to know what shows this person's talking about, because Fred Again, I think, is a great example where, like, if you're going to that show or going to like a Madion or a Porter Robinson or even like a San Holo kind of stuff like that, that is, you would not be saying that if you were going to those kind of shows. So maybe the festivals you're going to are just kind of boring. I don't know.
Maybe.
The lamest kind of music alias is your name with X's or V's replacing vowels, because its its legibility depends on how familiar your name is to the average person. I absolutely agree with this, and I think this is going to die out soon, because in my personal brain canon, this exists because of all of the gamer tags that we are currently growing up on, our generation of making my new Xbox or PlayStation's gamer tag and having to be unique and stuff. And so it's like XXX and then like some crazy like General Sniper XX or something like that. And so, but I agree. I don't love it. When you do stylized things, I don't mind that, like the O with the thing in it or something like that, or the U and the Jack U.
Yeah.
But when it's like Jake's name, for example, like the GVKE, I thought that was Juke for a long time, because that makes way more sense than Jake. So
I think it was the same for me with I'm trying to think. Loud Pack, I thought was Loud Puck for the longest time. I'm not even really sure why. It just kind of looks like that when you've got the V.
Totally.
But and I get confused about that a lot with certain artists. Like there's a dubstep artist who goes by Evade, and it's spelled EVVDE. So it's like, I think like people do that a lot, where it's
weird.
Like you're using a V as a V and an A. Or
you can't do that. You got to pick one.
You can't mix it together. Yeah, it's got to be one, and it has to be really obvious. What it is. Maybe it's obvious to some people, but it's not to me.
I think it's going to die also too, because just for SEO stuff, like just the searchability of your name, it goes way down, I think, when you have EVVD. And I guess maybe it's because it's unique in that sense, but it's just silly to me.
Yeah, I know what you mean.